Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. One night in the Hidden Leaf village, the villagers are having a great night until the giant fox with 9 tails called the 9-tailed fox suddenly attack. Many ninjas tries to protect the village. A few moments later, a giant toad come to face the 9-tailed fox in battle. One shinobi was on top of the giant toad's head. He the 4th Hokage, leader of the Leaf Village. He looked at the baby in his arms before he laid down the baby on the toad's head behind him and made several quick hand signs. Reaper Death Seal. 4th Hokage shouted. And with the flash the 9-tailed fox was sealed in the baby. The 4th Hokage slowly dying because to use the Reaper Death Seal, he did to sacrificed his own life. He used his last strength to jump off the giant toad before the giant toad vanishing. When he on the ground he looked at the baby again. You will be a great ninja and a great hero my son, Naruto Uzumaki. 4th Hokage said before he die. The 3rd Hokage walk over to the 4th Hokage and Naruto. He picked Naruto up and walked back to the village. On his way to his office of the Hokage Tower, the villagers saw the 4th Hokage and the 9-tailed fox battle and want to kill Naruto. Kill the demon, one of the villagers said. The 3rd Hokage sighs as he kept on walking. When he got to his office, he sent Anbu to get the orphanage owner. A while later the owner come. You want to see me? Owner asked. Yes, I want you to take Naruto to your orphanage. 3rd said. 4 years later. A kid was thrown out of the orphanage. Get out kid. The owner said. Why? The kid asked. Look, you're old enough to take care of yourself, besides no one want to adopt you. The owner said before he walked back in his orphanage. Kid looked at the orphanage for the moment then he walked away. He's got blonde hair and whisker marks on his face. He wears an orange jumpsuit. He name is Naruto Uzumaki. Why does everyone hate me? Naruto asked to himself. He walked through the group of villagers, the villagers give him few glares. A few moments later, his stomach gave out a loud roar of complaint. I'm so hungry. Naruto said before he smell something. That smells good. Naruto thought before he followed the smell. He followed the smell for a few minutes then he stopped and looked at what he headed to. A purple-haired woman with a long brown trench coat sitting by the table outside of the restaurant, eating some dumplings. He walked to her to see if the woman does not hate him but still he kept his hopes low. Look, it's the demon brat. A voice said behind him. Naruto slowly turned around and saw some group of villagers with some chunin and one jonin. Get him! Jonin yelled before he and the others ran to Naruto. Naruto run for his life, he ran past restaurant followed by group. He turned a corner, only to find himself in a dead-end alleyway. He slowly turned to face the group and backed up against the wall. The group was moving closer and closer to him. Then when they got near him they started beating him. Why? Naruto asked in pain. Because you deserve to die demon. Jonin said. Leave him alone. A voice yelled. A same woman Naruto saw at the restaurant drop off a nearby roof, landing gracefully in between Naruto and the group. Get out of the way, Anko. One of the chunin said. Yeah, can't you see we are trying to kill the demon? One of the villagers said. What demon? All I see is a poor child being beaten by idiots like you. Anko yelled. Figures, no matter. One dead woman with the brat won't make a difference. Jonin said. The group began to move towards the woman and child. Pure killer intent was raining down upon both of them. I'm warning you, back off. Anko yelled as she prepared to fight. Or what? One of the chunin asked. Or else I'll get involved. A voice said. With a puff of smoke, various jonin now stood in between the attackers and ones being attacked. He had spiky, silver hair that defied gravity and a mask that covered the lower part of his face. His Konoha forehead protector was covering his left eye, leaving only the right one uncovered on his face. That Kakashi, let's get out of here. Jonin yelled. With that, they turned and fled. The Kakashi sighed and turned to face Anko and Naruto. Are you two alright? Kakashi asked. Naruto and Anko slowly nodded their heads. Good. Now then Naruto, I need you to come with me. Kakashi said. Naruto looked at Kakashi in fear. What if this was another trick, for more people to hurt him? He clung Anko's legs with his arms and legs, making Anko to fall back on her butt. Kakashi just laughed. I promise, nothing will happen, and if it make you safe, Anko can come. Kakashi said. Naruto slowly nodded his head and slowly let go of Anko's legs. Anko stood back up on her feet and scooped Naruto up in her arms. The two took off towards Hokage Tower. On the way, Naruto passed out from injuries. In his office, the third Hokage sat taking a break from the overflowing paperwork on his desk. He took one long puff on his pipe before trying to get back to work. He sighed. He picked up his pen to do some signing, when he heard a knock on his door. Yes. The third Hokage called out. 2 visitors for you, Lord Hokage. The woman behind the door called out. Please, send them in. The third Hokage said. The woman nodded and through the doors entered Anko, along with Kakashi. Anko holding Naruto. What happened? The third Hokage asked. He was being attacked by a group of villagers with some Chunin and Jonin. Anko arrived to aid in his protection first, and when I arrived, I were able to drive the rest of them off. Kakashi said. Anko, how did you know that Naruto was in trouble? The third Hokage asked. Anko slowly walked over to a couch nearby and placed Naruto on it to rest. While I was enjoying some dumplings, I heard a noise. I saw a kid run followed by group, I follow them on the roofs. When I saw the kid getting beaten, I got mad and, did you say Naruto? Anko asked after she realized what the third Hokage said. Yes, his full name is Naruto Uzumaki. The third Hokage said. Uzumaki, he's the kid with the fox demon sealed in him, right? Anko asked. Yes, as a result, many of the people see him as the demon itself, instead of a carrier for it. Kakashi said. Just like me, Anko said to herself. What was that? The third Hokage asked. Nothing. So what will happen now? Anko asked. A nurse is on the way to treat some of his wounds, after which I will place him in the orphanage again. The third Hokage said. Again? You mean this isn't the first time he's been there? Anko asked. I'm afraid not. He must have been kicked out of the orphanage. The third Hokage said. So why are you sending him back even though they'll just toss him back out? Anko asked. It is not easy to always be there for him, most of the Jonin running missions and Lord Hokage working to restore order to the town after the demon's attack. Kakashi said. Anko looked at the boy with her eyes beginning to water. He was being forced to suffer because of the village's issues of not being able to look deep into who Naruto really is. It was just like her on so many levels. Even after becoming one of the youngest Jonin ever, she was still looked at as the scum of the village, much like Naruto. The nurse walked in and there was silence for the next 30 minutes. After she had done the treatment, she bowed and left, leaving the three and Naruto to themselves again. Well, you should both retire for the evening. Thank you for protecting Naruto for me, Anko. The third Hokage said. Wait, I want to adopt Naruto. Anko suddenly said. You? Kakashi asked in surprise. Are you sure about that? I mean, it seems rather rushed that you just jumped to that conclusion. The third Hokage asked. I'm sure. I want to protect Naruto from what I go through, and what path in life I took because of the pain of being alone. Anko said. The third Hokage scratched his beard and nodded. Take the boy home tonight. Kakashi shall escort you both there. Spend time with him tonight and tomorrow, and then be back here around 6 p.m. to make your final decision. The third Hokage said. Anko nodded and walked to Naruto. She carefully held him in her arms, and in an act that surprised them all, Anko included, kissed him on the forehead, telling him that he would not have to be alone ever again. Kakashi escorted the two to the place she called home. It's the Lone Tower, which rested in the Forest of Death. When they get there, Anko put Naruto on her bed, then she went to her living room where Kakashi is. I think that this will be good for the both of you, Anko. Kakashi said. I know, it's just raising a kid is a lot of work. Anko said. You'll be fine. If you have doubts though, I will be glad to take him off your hands for you. Kakashi said. No way. I'd rather die than to see someone as innocent as him turn into a pervert like yourself. Anko yelled. See, you're on the right track already. I must be off now. Make sure you go report to Lord Hokage tomorrow. Kakashi said before he vanished with a puff of smoke. Anko let out a small sigh as she returned to her bedroom. She pulled a chair to her bed and then sat back down. Naruto was drenched with sweat, as he began to kick in fear, as if he was having a nightmare. Anko slowly rubbed the side of cheek. His kicking slowed and then stopped, as if it had been enough to calm him down. Anko took Naruto's hand and held it tight. Naruto woke up. Where am I? Naruto asked. Naruto looking around his current location. He then saw Anko. Both of their eyes truly meeting for the first time. Hi kid. Anko said with a smile. A part of her felt like kicking herself for shouting it like that. My name is Anko, what yours? Anko asked. Naruto. Naruto said. Naruto, nice name. Anko said. You the one who saved me, right? Naruto asked. Why? Yes I am. Anko said. Thank you. Naruto said. Are you hungry? You look like you would be after sleeping for a long time like that. Anko asked. Naruto gave a slow nod. Well, let's say we head to the kitchen and get you something to eat, okay? Anko asked. Anko got of the bed and held her hand out for him to take. Naruto slowly took her hand. He climbed off the bed and slowly walked with her to the kitchen. When they in the kitchen, Anko took Naruto to a small table and sat him down. Alright Naruto, what would you like to eat? Anko asked. Anime and manga. Naruto looked down at the ground for a minute, and another small smile appeared on the child's face. Do you have any ramen? Naruto asked. Let me see. Anko said before she walked to the cabinets. Anko opened the cabinets and pulled a small cup out. Well, yes I do. Anko said. Naruto's small smile grew a little wider at this. Anko chuckled to herself about the small boy's reaction. Anko prepared the ramen cup, and sat it down at the table. Next she walked over to the refrigerator. Let's see, here we go. Every kid likes milk. Anko said as she got out the milk. Anko reached into the cabinet again and pulled out a small cup. After pouring the milk into the cup, she walked it over to him and sat down beside him. Naruto was quickly eating the ramen, like he never had a meal before. Anko sighed when she realized that he probably missed a lot of meals. She slowly put her hand in his hair and patted his head. Naruto jumped at the touch, afraid that he had done something wrong. Anko saw this. Hey, easy, I just thought you'd enjoy the ramen more if you slowed down to taste it. Anko said. I think someone needs a bath. I bet I could write my name in the dirt that's on your face. Anko said as she pinched her nose for emphasis. Naruto giggled at this quietly, imagining the woman writing her name on his face by using her finger. Anko carried him to the small bathroom, and filled the tub a little bit. She then undressed Naruto and sat him inside of the tub. It took her about 15 minutes, but after a while she finished scrubbing the dirt off of his body. From there, she moved on to his hair. It was a tangled mess, but she had to clean it. Naruto's face winced a little as she scrubbed through the dirt in his hair. Did I forget to mention that Naruto was covered with dirt when he was thrown out and got beaten? When Anko finished bath Naruto, she pulled Naruto out of the tub and brushed his hair, just to find out that it extended just past his shoulders. The bangs were so long that they covered one of his eyes. I have an idea, Anko said. Anko picked him up with the towel wrapped around him and took him back to the bedroom. She took one of the kunai from her coat pocket, and slowly lifted the hair that covered his eye. Naruto was a little scared at this. Was she going to attack him like the villagers did? He closed his eyes and prepared for the worst, only to hear a light slice. He opened his eyes and saw a small pile of hair form at his feet. Anko smiled. It'd be a shame to cover those eyes of yours. Now, let's get you some clothes on. I don't need to see you running around. Anko said. Naruto happily took her hand and they walked over to her dresser. She reached in and pulled out a long shirt. She then watched as he put it on, nearly disappearing from its massive size. She then reached into her top drawer and pulled out a small hair band, one like she used in her hair, and pulled Naruto's up into a ponytail, so it wouldn't get tangled while he slept. She sat Naruto on the bed, and excused herself to the bathroom, assuring him that she'd be right back. A few moments later, she returned wearing a long shirt similar to Naruto's. Anko then climbed in with him. He had a small grin on his face, one that was real instead of the grins he had earlier. Hey, Naruto, Anko asked as she turned off the lights. What? Naruto asked. How would you like it if we spent tomorrow with each other? I'll buy you some clothes, toys and maybe even some ninja supplies. Anko said. What a ninja? Naruto asked. Well, a ninja is a person who protects people. They fight to aid those in need, protect the village, and go on missions to various places, seeing the world as they do. Anko said. Cool. I want to be that too. I want to be the greatest ninja ever. Naruto said as he yawned. Anko smiled and kissed the now sleeping Naruto on the forehead. She put her arms around him, and held him tight. There was no doubt about it in her head. She would raise and nurture this child just like he should be. The two slept through the night with waking up once. Anko awoke early that morning, and went into the kitchen. She made a cup of coffee, and then sat down at the table, making a list of things she'd need for Naruto. Let's see. What things does the squirt need? Toys, clothes, a few books, some other things like food and milk. As much as I can't stand to say it, I doubt the runt could live on just dango and sake like me. Anko said to herself. Anko heard a loud yawn in the hallway and saw little Naruto walk into the kitchen. Anime and manga. Morning squirt. Did you sleep good? Anko said. Yup. Naruto yelled as he pumped his fist into the air for emphasis. Naruto climbed into the chair beside Anko. What are you, Miss Anko? Naruto asked. Just Anko is fine. Miss Anko makes me sound old. Now, to answer your question, I'm writing down some stuff we're going to get you today. Anko said as she patting him on the head. Really? Naruto asked. Yep. Tell me, what things you like to eat, Naruto? Anko asked with a wide grin. I like miso ramen. Ooh. And beef ramen. Pork ramen. And chicken too. Naruto said as he thinking about his favorite meal. Anko laughed at the thought. He was almost addicted to the stuff as she was to dango. Naruto smiled happily as Anko wrote down some of the different kinds of ramen he mentioned. They then hopped down from the table. Naruto sat in the bedroom, while the girl freshened up in the bathroom. After a small amount of time, she emerged wearing her normal attire, a fishnet bodysuit, khaki mini skirt, and long brown trench coat. She tied her headband around her head and scooped Naruto up in her arms. Ready to hit the town squirt? Anko asked. Yep. Let's go, Anko. Naruto yelled. She leapt her way through the forest, until the duo reached Konoha. It was still early, so there weren't many people walking the street. If there was, they weren't paying attention to the boy. Knowing that Anko would kill them should they try to do something was enough to keep them at bay. They quickly made their way to the shopping district. The first thing they decided to do was to buy the boy some clothes. Right now, he was still wearing the long shirt he got from Anko last night. So Naruto, what kind of clothes did you wear at the orphanage? Anko asked as they walked into the clothing store. I had a bright orange jumpsuit. I washed it every month. Naruto said as Anko put him down and took him by the hand. Didn't you have any other clothes? Anko asked. No, just the one. Naruto said. If they only gave him one outfit, they should have let him wash it more than once a month. Anko thought in angry. Is something wrong, Anko? Naruto asked. She snapped out of her anger and smiled at the boy. Everything is just fine. Now let's get you some style. Anko said with a smile. They walked around the store looking at various things. After many trial and errors, they picked 8 pairs of baggy black pants, 6 sleeveless black shirts, a pair of black boots, and much to Naruto's begging and happiness, a long black coat like Anko's. Next stop was the bookstore. Anko picked out a few kiddie books for Naruto, that had a few fairy tales in them. As she was paying for the books, a Jonin with silver hair entered the store. He immediately recognized the two. Anko simply waved to him as she saw him move to the corner of the adult section of the store. Apparel. It that man who saved our lives. Who was that guy? Naruto asked. That was Kakashi the pervert. You make sure to call him that every day, okay? Anko asked with a smile. Okay, Naruto said. They went to the toy shop next. Anko bought Naruto a stuffed fox, several toy ninjas and a teddy bear. It was about noon at that point, so they stopped to get the two some dango while they were on that side of town. Naruto had never had it before. His little hands picked up a stick, and he sniffed it like a little fox would. He then slowly took a nibble of it in his mouth and smiled happily. The two cleared 3 full plates in no time. Anko returned to the tower to drop off the things they had bought so far. Naruto played happily in the floor where a fighting ring of sorts was located. He was having his teddy bear and fox have a fight against the ninjas. Anko looked over at him from the balcony above and leapt over it, into the ring. Having fun, squirt? Anko asked. Yep. Naruto said. We need to go run some more errands, okay? Anko asked. Okay. Naruto said. Anko picked up and tossed him into the air. Naruto giggled happily as she caught him in her arms and hugged him tight. She then put him on her shoulders and made her way back to town. It was about 6 p.m., so Anko made her way to the Hokage's tower. She walked through the entrance, and smiled as she passed Kurenai in the hallway. Hello Anko. Naruto. Lord Hokage has been expecting you. Kurenai said with a smile. What? I'm not in trouble, am I? Naruto asked. Naruto's smile began to fade some. Anko hugged the child tightly in her arms. You not in trouble, squirt. Anko said. Naruto's smile returned. Hey, Kurenai. Anko asked. Yes. Kurenai asked. I was wondering if you could keep an eye on my squirt here while I talk to the old man. Anko asked. Kurenai was about to say something. You can, thanks. Anko before Kurenai could even answer. Anko put Naruto down then kissed Naruto on the cheek. You wait right there with Auntie Kurenai, and I'll be right back, okay? Anko asked. Okay. Naruto said before he turned back to Kurenai as Anko walked into the Hokage's office. The old man was working on the paperwork sitting on his desk. He looked up when he saw Anko come in and smiled. Anko, I trust everything has gone well. The third Hokage asked. Yes, Lord Hokage. Naruto has enjoyed himself, and I did as well. Anko said. Have you made a decision? The third Hokage asked. Yes, sir. I wish to make the adoption of Naruto Uzumaki official. Anko said. Very well, you may go. The third Hokage said. What? Anko asked. He's your son now. Take him home, and treat him well. I leave Mitarashi Naruto in your care from now on. The third Hokage said. Anko smiled and thanked the Hokage. The two walked out of the office and saw Naruto sitting Kurenai's lap, telling her about Anko's and his day. Naruto saw Anko walk out the door and hopped of Kurenai. Anko. Naruto yelled as he hugged her. Naruto, do you always want a mother? The third Hokage asked. Yes, old man. Naruto said. Well then, Naruto, you got your wish. The third Hokage said. What do you mean? Naruto asked. Naruto, I adopted you today. Anko said as she took the boy in her arms and smiled. Really? I have a new mother now? Naruto asked. Anko awoke and looked at the small child sleeping happily beside her. She couldn't believe that she officially made Naruto her child yesterday, even so much as changing his last name to hers. She let out a slow yawn and decided to go ahead and get up for the day. Let's see, he could use a new playmate. It'd be nice for him to have someone his own age to keep him company. Anko said to herself, sipping a small amount coffee in her cup. What, mommy? Naruto asked. Anko turned around as she saw the little boy rubbing his eyes sleepily. She knelt down to his level and kissed his forehead. Just talking to myself, squirt. Did you sleep well? Anko asked as she ran her hand through Naruto's hair. Yup, mommy, you make a good pillow. Naruto said with a smile. Anko almost fell over when she heard that. She felt a strange pressure on her while she was asleep last night, but just shook it off as lying in a weird position. She had no idea that it was Naruto who rolled into her and began to use her for a pillow. Anyways, kid, I was thinking that we can visit some friends of mine today. They have a little girl about your age, I bet she'd love someone like you to play with. Anko said. She noticed that Naruto looked down at the ground and started to move his foot in a circle around the floor. She put her hand on his shoulder and looked into his eyes. A small amount of fear was in his eyes. What wrong, squirt? Anko asked. When I was at orphanage, none of kids would play with me. They would hurt me. What if she's the same way? Naruto asked in fear. Anko picked the boy up into her arms and hugged him tightly. He looked at her face and saw the smile that always made him smile back. He returned the hug. Naruto. They are my best friends, and if they like me, then they'll love you. Anko said with a smile. Really? Naruto asked. Of course. Anko said. Naruto giggled as she tickled his stomach some, and then put him down so he could go get ready. She sighed as she watched him run towards the room, following close behind. After helping Naruto get ready, she allowed him to play in the ring room, while she got herself cleaned and dressed. After finishing up, she made her way to Naruto's unofficial playroom, and jumped over the railing of the balcony. Naruto jumped into her arms and hugged her. Can I bring Jack? Naruto asked. He pointed down to the stuffed fox that he named Jack. Anko nodded, and picked up the fox. Naruto held onto it tightly as they jumped through the forest, towards Konoha. They landed in the village and began to head back for the shopping district of the village again. Naruto held her hand tightly as he noticed a few glares coming towards him. Relax, squirt, no one's gonna want to try and hurt you with me here. Anko said. Naruto lightened his grip some. As they turned the corner, Naruto noticed that they were heading for a small weapon shop. Not that he could read the sign, but the large picture of a katana and several ninja stars told him that it was that kind of shop. Anko opened the door for him and then followed the boy inside. Naruto's eyes widened at all the various weapons that aligned the walls and display cases. He had never seen so many things like this before, though he remembered hearing about a few of them from a story Anko read to him last night. Behind the counter, he spotted a man working on polishing a katana. "We'll be closing for lunch soon, so unless you have business, I ask that you please come back later," the man said. "Come on, John, is that any way to talk to a lady as sexy as me?" Anko asked with a huge grin. "What? Oh, it's just you, Anko," John said. "So how's business going?" Anko asked. "A little slow, but once the Chunin exams start back up in a few weeks, things will pick up," John said. It was at that moment that John saw Naruto hiding behind Anko's leg. He peeked out from behind it as the man knelt down beside him and smiled. Naruto sheepishly smiled back. The man rubbed his hair and stood up to Anko's level. "Who the kid?" John asked. "This is my squirt," Anko said as she picked Naruto up and held him in her arms. "Your squirt? I don't remember you having a kid," John said. "That because I adopted him yesterday," Anko said with a large grin. "Really?" John asked. Suddenly, a fist was sent to the back of his head. A slightly small woman looked at him with anger, which then turned to one of happiness as she saw her best friend. Anko walked up and hugged her friend. "How are you doing, Kani?" Anko asked. "More or less. The little one is getting excited about starting at the academy next week," Kani said. "Speaking of little one, call the kid, I got someone for her to meet," Anko said. Kani nodded and walked out back. She was gone for about 5 minutes, and finally returned with her hands on a small girl's shoulders. The small girl had her hair up in 2 small buns. Her little brown eyes seemed focused on the small boy in Anko's arms. She wore a simple pink, Chinese-styled jumpsuit. Anko walked over to the girl and smiled. "Have you been good, little girl?" Anko asked. "Yes, ma'am," the girl said while jumping. "Good. Then as a reward, you get to have a playmate for a while," Anko said. "Who is it?" the girl asked. "Naruto. This is Tenten." "Tenten. This is my boy, Naruto," Anko said as she put the small boy on the ground. Tenten walked towards him, studying him as she walked around. "Your name is funny, and you have whiskers on your face," Tenten said. Naruto looked down at the ground in shame. "You look like fun, though. Let's go play outside. We can play ninja," Tenten yelled. "How do you play that?" Naruto asked shyly. "I'll show you, silly. You can bring your friend too," Tenten said as she pulled him along and pointing at the stuffed fox. Anko smiled as she watched Naruto be led outside by Tenten. His cheeks were blushing as he turned for a second to see Anko wave and blow him a kiss. She sighed as she sat on the couch and relaxed for a moment. "So, how did it happen?" John asked. "What do you mean?" Anko asked. "The adoption of Naruto. We all know who he is, and that he was at the orphanage, but how'd you manage to get a hold of him?" John asked. "He was attacked the other day. We know why, but I can't stand it. It sickens me the way people treat him, because of something inside of him, without even stopping to think about how they are really 2 different beings," Anko said in a low voice. "So you decided to take action?" Kani asked. Anko nodded. "Good. Naruto deserves someone with a good heart like yours to raise him," John said with a smile. "Thanks. By the way, I have a favor to ask you," Anko said. "Of course. Naruto is welcome anytime to come and play with Tenten, and we'd be happy to watch him during a mission for you, should you need to leave," John said. Anko thanked the two and walked over to the back, looking out the window at Naruto and Tenten playing. "Do you see him?" Tenten asked. "Yep. He's got a lot of people around him. Naruto said as his small face peeked out from behind the bushes. Naruto, they're the bad guys. You need to remember that. Tenten said. Sorry. So how do we save Jack? Naruto asked. We sneak attack. Tenten said. Sneak attack? Naruto asked. Yup. That means that we fight them without being seen. Here, take these. Tenten said as she reached into a small pouch on her belt and pulled out 10 shuriken, handing them to Naruto. Naruto looked at them with a question in his eyes, and then back at Tenten. He was confused. What do I do with these? Naruto asked. Naruto, you silly. You throw them at the bad guys. Try to hit as many as possible, okay? Tenten said with a giggle. Naruto nodded. Both he and Tenten got on the ground, and crawled closer to the bad guys, which were really just practice dummies. When they stopped crawling, Tenten nodded at Naruto, who nodded back. Anko began to watch with sudden interest. They both rose up and threw 10 shuriken each towards the dummies. Tenten hit the dummies with all of her shuriken, something that was to be expected since she was the daughter of a weapons expert. Naruto, however, surprised her. He threw all of his, and managed to hit the dummies with 8 of the 10 shuriken. Anko, that was amazing. Have you been training him or something? John asked as he looked out at Naruto and Tenten celebrating the rescue of Jack. I thought about it, but I haven't done anything yet. The only time I mentioned the idea to him of even becoming a shinobi was the other night, and that was just to help calm him down and such for the first night at the tower. Anko said, maybe you should. He seems to have some natural talent, and he seems to enjoy playing ninja with Tenten as well. Kani said. Yeah, Anko said. Anko let Naruto and Tenten play for about another hour, and then the two went elsewhere. Naruto promising Tenten to play again later in the week. Tenten happily agreed. Anko walked with Naruto's hand in hers, listening to Naruto's story of the ninja game. They stopped by the ramen stand, where they had some lunch, before she took Naruto to the park to play. Have fun, squirt, Anko said as she sat on a bench. Naruto nodded and ran off with Jack in his arms to play. He was making his way around the park, noticing several kids playing with each other. A small girl with pink hair was playing tag with a little girl with blonde hair. Another boy with a lazy look in his eye was swinging beside another boy who was eating a bag of chips. They all looked happy, but something caught Naruto's eye. Inside the small sandbox, sat a girl with a sad look on her face. She had pale eyes, and short hair, which was a little shorter than Naruto's. She wore a small, brown jacket. Naruto walked up to her and sat beside her. What wrong? Naruto asked. What do you mean? The girl asked as she looked at him. You look sad. Jack said that I should see if you were okay. Naruto said. Oh, I'm okay, the girl said. No, I know that look, you're lonely. So, why don't we play together? Naruto asked. Why you'd play with me? The girl asked. The girl began to push her index fingers together and fidget with them. Yep. My name is Naruto Mitarashi. Who are you? Naruto asked. My name is Hinata Hyuga. Hinata said, shyly. Anko smiled as she saw the two engage in little conversation. The girl stuttering through almost every word. Naruto encouraging her to be more open. She laughed at the sight. Well, what do you know? Look like Naruto can make friends with anyone if they're willing to accept him as the boy and not as the demon. Be it a family of weapon merchants or the daughter of one of the most prestigious clans in the village. Anko thought. Naruto and Hinata had just finished building a sand castle. Hey, Hinata, do you want to go on the swings? Naruto asked happily as he pointed at the swings. Sure, Hinata said. Hop on, I'll push you. Naruto said as he held the swing so that Hinata could sit on it. Hinata sat down and Naruto began to slowly push her, and then he pushed her higher. Ah, Naruto. Please, not so high up. Hinata said as she tightened her grip on the chain. Sure thing, Naruto said. Hey freak. Man yelled as he approached Naruto and Hinata. Naruto's eyes filled with fear as he felt himself being pulled up by the neck. My kid wants to swing, so get lost. Man said while he glared deeply at Naruto. Hey, a voice yelled behind the man. The man turns around and saw Anko standing with a kunai in her hand. Get away from my son. Anko yelled. Or what? The man asked. Or else I'll get involved. Another voice said behind the man. The man turns around again and saw Hinata's father, Hiashi Hyuga, the head of the Hyuga clan. The man gasped in surprise, he didn't expect to see him here. He left, he knew better than to mess with Lord Hyuga. You okay? Hiashi asked. Yes, father. Hinata said. Are you alright Naruto? Anko asked as she checked up on him. Yes, mommy. Naruto said. Mommy, I thought Naruto doesn't have a parents. Hiashi said. I adopted him yesterday Lord Hyuga. Anko said with a bow. I see. Hinata, why do you go play with Naruto while I talk with his mother? Hiashi said. Oh okay, father. Hinata said before she and Naruto walk off to play. So, you adopted Naruto? Hiashi asked. Yes, Lord Hyuga. Anko said. Good, I was hoping that Naruto will have a mother. Hiashi said with a smile. You don't hate him? Anko asked in surprise. Of course not, his father was my teammate and my best friend. Hiashi said. Anko smiled about this. Tomorrow is Hinata's 4th birthday, how about you and Naruto come over? Hiashi asked. I think that a great idea. We'll be there. Anko said. Anko smiled as she walked over to Naruto, who jumped into his mother's arms. He said goodbye to Hinata, promising to be back again another day to play. Did you have fun today, Squirt? Anko asked as the two headed home. Yes, Naruto said with a yawn. There was a silence as the two returned home. Anko prepared Naruto a light dinner, gave him a bath, and read him a story. Squirt? Anko asked. Yes mommy. Naruto asked. Tomorrow is Hinata's birthday. Would you like to wishing her a happy birthday? Anko asked. That will be great. Naruto said. Anko and Naruto climbed into bed and turned out the lights. Anko fell asleep almost instantly, but Naruto lay there, staring at the ceiling. The thoughts of him going to Hinata's place for her birthday raced through his mind. Naruto let out a low yawn, and allowed sleep to take over for the night. What you think? If you guess that when Hinata is kidnapped by the Cloud Ninja on the next chapter then you are right. I know it's supposed to be on Hinata's 3rd birthday but I got another idea. Naruto is kidnapped as well by the Sound Ninja. Okay, hear a vote or whatever it called, about Naruto learning the summoning jutsu of snakes and can summon Mata. Anko and Naruto awoke and had some breakfast. Then they got dressed. Anko picked Naruto up and held him in her arms. Ready to go Squirt? Anko asked. Yup. Naruto yelled as he pumped his fist into the air for emphasis. They jumped through the forest, towards Konoha. They landed in the village and began to head to the Hyuga clan. While they on the road of the Hidden Leaf village, they got the sight of people cheering. Anko saw Kurenai and walked to her. Hey Kurenai, what all the cheering about? Anko asked. The ninja from the land of lightning come to signing to bring peace treaty between the two nations. Kurenai said. Ah, that's right, I forgot about that. Anko said. Then, where are you going? Kurenai asked. We off to the Hyuga clan for Lady Hinata's birthday. Anko said. Naruto make a friend with the heiress of the Hyuga? Kurenai asked in surprise. Yes, yesterday at the park. Anko said. Excuse me. A voice said behind Anko. Anko, Naruto, who's still in Anko's arms, and Kurenai turned around and saw a Leaf Genin walk towards them. He was wearing a pair of glasses, with a gray shirt and a gray pair of pants. He also wore gray fingerless gloves and shinobi sandals. He ran a hand through his silver hair as he smiled at them. Is that Naruto Uzumaki? A genin asked. It's Naruto Mitarashi now. And you are? Anko asked. Oh, how rude of me. My name is Kabuto Yakushi. Kabuto said. Well, Kabuto, we really must get going. Anko said before she with Naruto walk off to the Hyuga clan. Kurenai walk off to the crowd. Kabuto walked to the alleyway. Making sure he's alone. So, Anko adopted Naruto. Lord Orochimaru will like to hear this. The boy could become one of us. Kabuto thought before he vanished with a puff of smoke. Anko walked right to the Hyuga clan with Naruto in her arms. When they at the Hyuga clan, Anko put Naruto down and took him by the hand. When they in the Hyuga clan house, they were greeted by Hiashi with Hinata behind his leg. Welcome and thank you for coming. Hiashi said. It is our pleasure, Lord Hyuga. Anko said with a bow. Hinata moves behind her father's leg shyly. Hi-n Naruto. Hinata said. Hi Hinata. Naruto said. So, that Naruto Mitarashi that my brother told me about. A voice said. Anko and Naruto turned to see a man version of Hiashi and a small boy, a year older than Hinata. Anko. Naruto, this is my twin brother, Hisashi, and his son, Neji. Hiashi said. Nice to meet you. Anko said. You too. Hisashi said. Hi Neji. Naruto said nervously. Hi. Neji said. Hisashi, it is time to take Neji under my wing. Hiashi said. Yes, of course. Hisashi said. Somewhere in the forest, Kabuto is waiting for something or someone. The white man came. Kabuto bowed to him. Lord Orochimaru, I have some news about your ex-student, Anko Mitarashi. Kabuto said. What about her? Orochimaru asked. She adopted Naruto Uzumaki, or should I said Naruto Mitarashi, the container of the nine-tailed fox. Kabuto said. Orochimaru was surprised. His student has adopted the demon brat. I see. Orochimaru said. Do you want me to kill Naruto? Kabuto asked. No, I will personally see my student and her son. Orochimaru said. But Lord Orochimaru, do you truly think this is wise? Kabuto asked. Of course, I would like to see Anko and Naruto. Orochimaru said. Are you planning to put the cursed seal of heaven like you did on Anko? Kabuto asked with a smile. That not a bad idea, Kabuto. Orochimaru said with an evil smile. Back at the Hyuga clan, Hiashi was trained Hinata along with Naruto. Your kicks are still weak you too, but that why we training? Hiashi said. Yes sire. Hinata and Naruto said at the same time. Naruto and Hinata run right to Hiashi. Hiashi dodged and blocked their attack. Anko, Hisashi and Neji are sitting near the wall. Neji's head is covered in bandages where the bird cage seal is. Neji, do you understand about your destiny? Hisashi asked. I understand father. Neji said. Hisashi looked at his son for the moment then smiled before he looked at Anko. Anko, are you planning to let Naruto to the academy next year? Hisashi asked. I'm not sure, I mean I plan to but I don't think so. Anko said. I think you should. I think he will be a great ninja, right Neji? Hisashi asked. Right father. Neji said. Hiashi has trained Naruto and Hinata for hours. Alright you two, we are done training. Hiashi said before he walks off. Hinata and Naruto walk outside and sit down. Naruto, are you going to academy next year? Hinata asked. What academy? Naruto asked. The A Academy is where they begin to train new ninja. Hinata said. That cool. I'm going to ask mommy about that. Naruto said. A servant had come in to announce that dinner was fully prepared. Lady Hinata, dinner is ready. It's time for supper. Servant said. Oh okay, we will be tea there in a minute. Hinata said before she and Naruto stand up. Hinata lead him to the dining room. Anko and most of the Hyuga family was already seated around the dining table. Once Hinata and Naruto entered the room, Hinata led Naruto to where they would be seating. Hinata sat right next to her father. Naruto sat next to his mother. A few hours later, it was nighttime. Anko picked Naruto up and held him in her arms. Thank you for inviting us, and happy birthday Lady Hinata. Anko said with a bow. Bye Hinata. Happy birthday. Naruto said. Thank yun Naruto. Hinata said. Anko and Naruto headed home. Naruto fall asleep on the way. Before they got to the forest of death, cloud of smoke appear in front of them. A chunin with glasses and a headband tied on top of his head like a bandana. What do you want? Anko said. Lord Hokage would like to have a word with you. Chunin said. Alright, tell Lord Hokage that I be there as soon as I put Naruto to bed. Anko said as she walked on home. When they at home, Anko put Naruto to bed. Then she bit her thumb, made some hand signs and she put her hand with her bleeding thumb on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Anko said. Suddenly a large cloud of smoke puffed through the area, revealing a 25-meter snake. Why did you summon me? Snake asked. Raziel, I've got a job for you. I need you to watch my squirt. Anko said. You summon me to rat ssssit. Raziel asked. Babysit. Just a few hours. Anko said. Fine. Raziel said. Thank you, I'll be back soon. Anko said before she head to the Hokage tower. Raziel sighed as it settled down to watching the boy. At the Hokage tower, the third Hokage had just finished his worst enemy, paperwork. He looked out the window. Do you want to see me, Lord Hokage? A voice asked. The third Hokage turned around and saw Anko. Yes, I want you train Naruto to be able to enter the academy, and become a genin. The third Hokage said. If I refuse, I'm not fully sure if I want Naruto to become one. Anko said. If you refuse, Kakashi will take Naruto to raise and train on his own. The third Hokage said. Fine, I'll begin Naruto's training first thing in the morning. Besides, he'd better a better ninja with my influence than Kakashi's. Anko said. Okay, dismissed. The third Hokage said. Anko walked off to her home. When she at home, she walked to her room. She thanked Raziel and Raziel muttered while vanishing. Anko walked to her son and slowly rubbed the side of cheek. Naruto, you'll be a great ninja. Anko said. Just then, there was a noise in the ring room. Anko went to look around, she then walked back to her room. Suddenly, 4 ninjas come out of nowhere and ambush Anko. Anko managed to beat 3 ninjas but the 4th ninja grabbed her arm and twisted it behind her, and then had her arm wrapped around Anko's neck. Anko tried to struggle out of ninja's grip. Well Anko, it's been a while. Voice said before he came out of the shadow. It was Orochimaru the Snake Sannin, which means that the ninjas are sound ninjas. Not just the sound ninjas, they are the sound 4. Sakin and Ukin on the right side of Orochimaru, Jirobo on the left side of Orochimaru, Kidomaru hanging upside down on the ceiling and Tayuya was the one who holding Anko. Orochimaru, why are you here? Anko asked in Argari. Ah, why so cold? I thought that you would have been happy to see me again after all these years. Orochimaru said. Lord Orochimaru, I got him. A voice said behind Orochimaru. Orochimaru turned around and saw a new member of the Sound 4, Kimimaro Kagaya, and he got Naruto lock in his arms. Naruto tried to struggle out of Kimimaro's grip. Mommy. Naruto cried. Naruto. Let him go. Anko yelled. Now Anko, you shouldn't yell at your sensei like that. Orochimaru said. What do you want? Anko asked. I just want to see my former student's son, also make a run in family. Orochimaru said with an evil smile. Anko's eyes widened, as she know what he mean. Don't you dare put that cursed seal on my son. Anko yelled as she tries to get free. Why not? I think he'll be great with it. Orochimaru said. What a cursed seal. Naruto asked in fear. Oh, you find out boy. Orochimaru said. Orochimaru made a set of hand signs, his neck shot forward. It slithered around, resembling a snake as it aimed straight for Naruto. Before Naruto could do anything, Orochimaru had latched onto the back of Naruto's neck, biting down with his fangs. He sat there for a moment, before slowly pulling away from Naruto's neck, and then the Sanin's own neck returned to its normal place. He smiled as the black marks appeared on the back of Naruto's neck where the Sanin bit. Naruto cries in pain. Naruto. Orochimaru, you monster. Anko yelled. I just give him a family gift. Orochimaru said with a smile. Anko finally got free, grabbed a kunai from a pocket on her coat and tossed a kunai at her former sensei. Orochimaru simply caught it between his fingers. Too slow, Anko. Orochimaru said. Orochimaru formed a one-handed seal to activate the curse seal on Anko to render her helpless. Anko dropped to her knees from the pain emanating from the seal on her shoulder. Let's see what he want the most, family or power. Orochimaru said before he walks back to the shadow and vanished. We'll meet again Anko and Naruto. Tayuya said before she and her members vanished with a puff of smoke. Anko quickly rose to her feet, run to Naruto and pick him up. Naruto is unconscious. Anko raced towards the hospital as fast as her legs would let her. 5 hours later, Anko sat by the narrow hospital bed, looking down at Naruto with sad eyes. The third Hokage was in the meeting at the Hyuga clan about the death of the head cloud ninja after he kidnapped Hinata. Naruto, I'm so sorry. I failed, Anko said as she cries. Just then, she heard the door open behind her. Anko turned around and saw the third Hokage, Hiashi, Kakashi and Kurenai. How is he? Hiashi asked. I don't know. He might be dead, Anko said. Mommy. A voice asked behind Anko. Anko turned around and saw Naruto sitting up and surprisingly, no cursed seal markings all over his face. Anko hugged Naruto and kissed his forehead. I'm here, son, Anko said. What happened? Kakashi asked. We were attacked by sound ninjas and Orochimaru. Anko said. Orochimaru? The third Hokage asked. Yes, somehow he knows that I adopted Naruto. Anko said. Anything else? Hiashi asked. Well, Orochimaru put the cursed seal of heaven on Naruto like he did to me. Anko said. Cursed seal of heaven? Kurenai asked in shock. Yes. Anko said. How do you feel, Naruto? The third Hokage asked. I fine. A little bit hurt but fine. Naruto said. May I see your neck? The third Hokage asked. Naruto looked at the third Hokage for the moment then nodded. The third Hokage looked at the back of Naruto's neck and saw it, the cursed seal mark same as Anko's. Hiashi wondered how the cursed seal didn't do anything. He activated his Byakugan, looked at Naruto for the moment then deactivated his Byakugan. Guys, could we talk outside? Hiashi asked. One by one others walk out. Anko kissed Naruto's forehead. I be right back, Anko said before she walk out. When she outside of the room, she look at Hiashi. When I look at Naruto with my Byakugan, I saw a red chakra as blocking the cursed seal. Hiashi said. Red chakra? That the chakra of the nine-tailed fox. Kakashi said. So, Naruto is safe? Anko asked. Look like it. Kurenai said. Well, I better take Naruto home. Anko said before she walks back in the room. Remember Anko, you have to train Naruto for the academy. The third Hokage said. Yeah, Anko said. When she got in the room, she picked Naruto up and held him in her arms. They head home. When they got home, Anko took a deep breath. Naruto, how would you like to go to the academy? Anko asked. Yeah, I want to do it. I want to be the ninja ever. Naruto said. Anko smiled at his enthusiasm. He reminded her of herself when she was little. Anko smiled and hugged him tightly. Alright, we'll begin your training in the morning. We're behind your friends so we have a lot to catch up on. Anko said. Anko and Naruto climbed into bed and turned out the lights. Anko fell asleep almost instantly, but Naruto lay there, staring at the ceiling. The thoughts of him being a ninja raced through his mind. He pictured himself in place of the ninja in the story they read the other night. He was saving the village, being cheered by everyone in the village. Naruto let out a low yawn, and allowed sleep to take over for the night. What you think? If you hate that Naruto got the cursed seal of heaven, then sorry, but I thought that'd be so cool if Naruto has one. If you want to know when he used the cursed seal, then wait for the few chapters. Okay, here a vote or whatever it called, about Naruto learning the summoning jutsu of snakes and can summon Manda. Anko awoke early. She had to admit that she was a slight bit worried for what could happen to Naruto in life. If she trains Naruto, the cursed seal will get stronger. At the same time though, she was excited. Naruto could earn wide acceptance from the village. Maybe even being regarded as a hero. He could also get to interact with other kids his age, allowing him to make even more friends. She quietly got herself ready, and began to get things ready for the two of them to begin training. She took charts and weaponry to the room below, aka Naruto's playroom. She then brought various training dummies out and sat them around the ring. When that done, she went upstairs to get her squirt in training. She entered the room and looked at the small boy sleeping. She gently bent down and scooped him up in her arms. From there, it was straight to the ring room below. She smiled. Slowly the sleeping form of Naruto was turned upside down, Anko now holding him by his ankles. Naruto, Anko said out dreamily. Naruto opened his eyes slowly. Time to wake up, rat. Anko yelled. Naruto's eyes suddenly flashed wide open as Anko dropped him. He hit against the ring below him. He yelled in pain and looked up with a small amount of anger in his eyes due to his rude awakening. What was that for, mommy? Naruto asked. Anko smacked him in the back of the head. Wrong. Every morning, from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., we will be training for your entrance into the academy. During this time, you will address me as Anko-sensei, not mommy. You got that, rat? Anko asked after yelling. Why yes, Anko-sensei. Naruto said. Good. Now let's start things out with a few trial and errors. First, let's see what kind of chakra you got. Anko said. Chakra? Naruto asked. You know, like the story. Anko said. Oh, that easy. Naruto said. He stood closing his eyes for a minute, and then began to look like he was concentrating on something intently. Beads of sweat began to form on his forehead, as if he was in a struggle to do this. After about 2 minutes a very, very faint blue wave came from him. Anko was afraid of this. He lacked a mass amount, and what little bit he could produce, he had trouble getting out. At the same time though, she was happy that the cursed seal didn't cover his body. Just like I was afraid. You lack the ability to be able to easily produce chakra. Anko said, his blue eyes full of question. Anko walked over to a small chart and pointed at the picture. See, the body has something called a chakra network. It carries chakra through the body, allowing us to use skills that ninja use, like the ability to make copies, teleport, things like that. In other words, To become a successful ninja, you need to be able to produce more chakra through these. You got it? Anko asked. I think so, Naruto said. Don't worry, it'll become easier to grasp as we begin to train more. Let's move on to the next test, Anko said. Naruto nodded and followed her over to a small case. She bent down and opened the box, revealing kunai and shuriken. Anko noticed Naruto's eyes widen as he saw all of these. She realized that he must have been thinking back to when he playing with Tenten earlier. You remember using these, rat? Anko asked. Yes, Anko-sensei, Tenten and I used them when playing ninja. Are we going to play too? Naruto asked. Anko once again smacked the back of his head. We not here to play, rat. We're here to train. Now grab 10 of those shuriken. I need to make sure that you didn't just get lucky when you hit the targets few days ago, Anko said. Naruto nodded and took 10 of the shuriken. He then walked over to face one of the dummies, standing directly across from it. He closed his eyes for a minute and then opened them up. On my count, Anko said. Naruto is getting ready to throw. 1, 2, 3. Anko yelled. Naruto threw all the shuriken at the dummy. He closed his eyes as he listened to them make their impact. Next he slowly opened his eyes, to see how he had done with this part of the test. Anko was already over at the dummy writing something down on a notepad. She looked back at Naruto. 6 out of 10, rat. Not as good as few days ago, but you are definitely further along than you are with chakra. Grab 5 of those kunai and try to hit the dummy with them now, Anko said. Naruto nodded and walked over to the case. He grabbed 5 of the said weapon, and then once again returned to his previous spot to resume the test. He once again took a deep breath and threw them towards the dummy. Anko walked towards the dummy, and once again jotted something down in her book. 4 out of 5, not bad for a rat, Anko said. Naruto smiled at his accomplishment, but a stern glare from Anko told him not to be celebrating yet. He quieted down and waited for the woman to instruct him on what came next. Anko marked something down in her book. Alright, your skills with weapons are definitely above average for your age. Don't let it go to your head though, maggot. It's still far from perfect. Now, let's test your strength, Anko said. Anko and Naruto walked out to another dummy. A wire suspended this. It swung lightly back and forth as if it was suspended just a while ago. She noticed a small amount of confusion in Naruto's eyes again and sighed. This is to see how strong your taijutsu is, Anko said without being asked. Taijutsu? Naruto asked. Fighting skills. How well you fight using your hands and legs. We'll know how hard we'll need to train you, Anko said. Naruto nodded and walked forward and stood in a stance of sorts. Right away, Anko noted that it was absurd. Should he have been in a real fight right now, he'd have been taken at least 6 times before his opponent would even need to blink. She made note of this and then watched as he began to strike the dummy. It barely, if even that, moved. To make matters worse, Naruto was clearly putting everything he had behind his blows. The sweat that was forming on him. Despite his shortcomings, the boy was trying, and she knew his lack of skills was not completely his fault. With always being on the run from someone, it would be hard to improve oneself. She decided to take a more relaxed tone. Alright, Squirt, your weapon skills are good, a little more training and you'll be the best one in your class. However, your command of chakra and taijutsu are not so good. You are very weak in both categories, Anko said. Naruto looked at the ground. But that's what this test was here to do. To find your strengths and weaknesses and practice to make them stronger. Can you handle the training? Anko asked. Yes, Anko-sensei. I want to be a ninja. I do it, Naruto said. Good. Now go get dressed. We have a lot of things to do. Anko said. Naruto nodded and ran to the bedroom to get dressed. Anko watched as he ran off. A few minutes later, Naruto appeared on top of the balcony. Anko shot him a smile and leapt to the balcony and took Naruto in her arms. The two left the tower. What are we doing here? Naruto asked as they arrived at the training ground areas of the village. Laps. Every day, we will begin your day by running laps around Konoha. Anko said. How many times do I have to run around it? Naruto asked. You know, squirt, I don't recall saying. Now move. Anko yelled. Anko tossed a kunai at him, causing Naruto to run. Anko took off after him. Anyone who happened to be in the area of the training grounds watched as the two ran. This continued on until Anko ordered him to stop after about the 16th lap around the village. How do you feel? Anko asked. She looked a bit flushed, but Naruto was drenched in sweat. My legs sore. Naruto managed to get out. Good. Get up. It's time to work on your taijutsu. Anko said. Anko pointed to a nearby training dummy. 100 leg strikes, using each leg, 100 times each, followed by 100 punches, using both arms, 100 times each. After that, 100 more of both arms and legs, but alternate between each blow. In other words, one strike for left leg, then right leg, then right hand, and then left hand. Anko said. Naruto nodded and ran to the dummy. He began to kick it just like she ordered. Anko shouted each number as he kicked. Then he began the punching drills. Anko sitting in front of him, eating a cup of ramen, just to make him mad. The real point was to use the anger to increase the power he was using, thus making the blows stronger. Immediately after that, he moved right on to the final part of the taijutsu exercises. Anko tossed a kunai at him with a sadistic grin every time he started to slow down. Naruto sighed as he fell to the ground after the drills. Sweat was literally pouring off his body. Here, Anko said as she handed him a bottle of water. Naruto took several sips and smiled. Anko wrapped his hands to slow the bleeding, knowing the fox would aid in healing. What's next, Anko-sensei? Naruto asked. Anko smiled and reached into a bag. A large pile of books appeared on the boy's lap, his eyes were as large as plates from the sheer number. Anko laughed at his expression. It was too easy not to. What are all these books? Naruto asked. Books that you'll need to learn so you can begin to grasp the beginning of the techniques you'll learn with me. These teach the basics of poison and snakes. Anko said. Books, poisons, snakes. Can I see? Naruto asked with intense interest. Fine, but I'm only going to show these once, for now. Anko said. Anko stood up and made several quick hand signs. They went by too fast for Naruto to tell what they were, but as soon as she finished, she shot her hands forward and two large snakes shot out of her jacket sleeves, one snake per sleeve. She smirked as she saw Naruto's amazed face. Like that? Anko asked. Naruto nodded. You'll love this. This is what you will learn before going to the academy. Anko said. Anko bit her thumb, made some hand signs and she put her hand with her bleeding thumb on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Anko said. Suddenly a large cloud of smoke puffed through the area, revealing a massive snake. Anko explained that she was just demonstrating something and the snake muttered while vanishing. Anko looked over and laughed as Naruto flipped open one of the books immediately. She knew that training him would be more fun than she thought. Slow down, Squirt. These books won't do you much good on your own, until you learn how to read. Anko said as she pulled him onto her lap. Anko began to read from one of the books while Naruto paid close attention. She finally called the training to a close for the day. They stopped off for some ramen, and then headed for home. After all his training, Naruto felt sore, and she could tell it. Anko laughed as he drugs himself into the bed. Tired? Squirt? Anko asked. Yeah, Naruto said. A low yawn escaped him. Then get some rest. Because we'll be doing this every day, for 1 year. Anko said as she pulled the covers on him. Naruto watched as she walked across the room and pulled out some weights. Starting next week, I'm going to attach these to your arms and legs. They weigh about 10 pounds each. Anko said. When will we finish? Naruto asked. Next year. Rest up, rat. We're doing all this again tomorrow. Anko said. After about 2 months, Naruto was making progress. His strength and stamina have definitely improved as a result of his taijutsu training, coupled with his weights and laps around the village. His chakra was becoming stronger as a result as well, also due to a meditation period he did each night before dinner. Anko watched with intent eyes as her son's strength and power was increasing before her eyes. He was so much different than he was at the start of the training. Naruto already mastered transformation jutsu and substitution jutsu. The clone jutsu is trickily, but he slowly master it, sometime. Anko had finally decided that he was ready to learn the summoning jutsu. Alright Squirt, you mastered the academy jutsu. Now it's time for you to learn the summoning jutsu, for the family style. Anko said. Summoning jutsu? Naruto asked. A jutsu that the user signs a contract with their own blood, each contract differing depending on what creature is to be summoned. Once this is done, the summoner need only perform the proper hand seals and offer a few additional drops of blood with the same hand they signed the contract with to perform the summon. Anko said. Cool. Naruto said. Okay. Now watch closely Squirt. Anko said. Anko bit her thumb, showed him the hand symbols and she put her hand with her bleeding thumb on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Anko said. Suddenly a large cloud of smoke puffed through the area, revealing a 20-meter snake with the snake contract scroll. The snake give the scroll to Naruto. What you do is sign your name in blood and leave a hand print of the hand you used to summon them. Anko said. Naruto opened the scroll and signed his name in blood along with a handprint of his right hand. Good. Now, do the hand signs like I show you. Anko said. Naruto repeated what she did and put his hand with his bleeding thumb on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Naruto said. Suddenly a large cloud of smoke puffed through the area, revealing a massive red snake. Who has SSSS summon me? Red Snake asked, which it's a female. Wow. A talking snake. Naruto said. Red Snake look at Naruto. Who are you, kid? Did you SSS summon me? Red Snake asked. I'm Naruto Mitarashi and yes I did summon you. Naruto said. Well, this SSSISSSS the first SSSST time anyone ever SSSSS summon me. Red Snake said. Cool. Naruto said. Well, I have to go, later kid. Red Snake said before she vanished with a puff of smoke. Well done, Squirt. Let's go home for some training. Anko said. Naruto was on his way home with Anko, when suddenly a loud, obnoxious voice seemed to scream out from the distance. Anko. It's nice to see you. The power of youth is burning in both of you and your son. A voice yelled. That voice. Why now? Anko asked to herself in annoying. What is it, Mom? Naruto asked. I figured you meet them sooner or later. Might as well get it over with, Anko said. Slowly Anko turned around with her hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto's eyes widened at the spectacle. Before him stood a man, with massive eyebrows, a neon green jumpsuit, and tacky orange leg warmers. Beside the large man, stood a miniature version of himself. Mommy, who are these people? Why do they have caterpillars on top of their eyes? Naruto asked in whisper. The tall man in green crashed onto the floor anime style. Anko was on the ground laughing wildly. She managed to get back to her feet, holding her sides from laughing so hard. Her face was red from the laughter. Naruto, this is mighty Guy, and his clone Rock Lee. Anko said. So you're Naruto. It is an honor to meet you. Lee, don't be shy. Introduce yourself. Guy yelled. Yes, Guy-sensei. Naruto Midorishi. It is an honor to meet you. I can see the fire of youth burning within you. I would be honored if you were to spar with me. Lee yelled. Lee, that was beautiful, Guy said as a tear ran down his face. Lee looked at Guy. Both of them smiled as a sunset appeared out of nowhere. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Anko slipped her hands of Naruto's eyes so he wouldn't have to see the next part of Lee and Guy hugging each other in the sunset. Anko sighed as the display ended and she cleared her throat to get the two's attention. Guy turned around and looked at the two. Listen, Guy, if there isn't anything you need, I need to get Naruto home, we still have a lot of training, Anko began. Ah, training for the Ninja Academy no doubt. Guy yelled. Well, yeah, Anko began only to be interrupted again. I sense a strong power within you, Naruto. Please fight me. Lee yelled. Can I have a sparring session, Mom? Naruto asked. Naruto looked at Anko with his big blue eyes, something that Anko found almost impossible to resist. Anko sighed. Fine. Just one moment. Anko said. Anko walked up to Guy and pulled him away for a minute. She took him away from the others and pushed him up against the wall. She looked at him like a lion about to catch its prey. Listen to me, Guy. Lee is a lot stronger than Naruto. Should any major harm come to my kid, then it's going to be you who pays for it, and I'll make sure you never teach another genin or academy student again, you got it? Anko asked as she pressed a kunai against Guy for emphasis. Of course. I assure Lee will not harm your son. Guy said. Good. Now, let's get over to training ground 13. Anko said. The four made their way to the said area. Naruto and Lee both stood in the middle of a ring of sorts. Guy stood in the middle, while Anko stood off to the side, picking her teeth with a dango stick. Guy announced the rules of the fight. Taijutsu would be the only means of combating. No ninjutsu was to be used. Anko cleared her throat and shot a glance at Guy. The man then added that should either hear Anko say the match was over, and then it would be over. The match started, and ended 5 minutes later. Naruto was no match for Lee, which was expected, seeing as how the best taijutsu masters of the village were training him. Lee was running complete circles around Naruto, slamming his legs and fists into the poor child. Still, Naruto climbed to his feet, and insisted on continuing. It wasn't until Anko had to hold the boy in her arms that he stopped trying to fight Lee. Anko was worried. He didn't just lose to the child, he was devastated. She expected Naruto to call it quits, that he'd want to stop his training. She couldn't have been more wrong. Naruto shouted out to Lee that he better watch out, because next time he would be the winner. Lee smiled and accepted. Anko smiled. Naruto had made yet another friend. Why she would have preferred it not to be one of the green-clad clones, if it made him happy, that was all that mattered. Anko with Naruto in her arms went home for the day. Naruto continued to train for the remainder of the year. He worked until he had the 3 basic jutsus mastered except for when it came to clone jutsu. It was then that Naruto decided that clone jutsu was his worst area, and he tried to avoid it whenever possible. His weapon skills were amazing, and thanks to the now combined efforts of Lee and Hinata, he was quite good at taijutsu. Time sped forward until Naruto reached it. His first day of the Ninja Academy. He felt nervous. His stomach in knots. He had just finished packing his bag for the big day. How you doing, Squirt? Anko asked. Naruto jumped at the sound of her voice and threw a kunai at her immediately. Anko simply caught it between her fingers. Too slow. Anko said grinned. After living with the woman for a full year, it would be an understatement to say he picked up a few habits. He was now almost, if not as sadistic as Anko. He loved making big entrances, and began pulling pranks with the aid of Anko. So you all ready for your day? Anko asked. I guess, Naruto replied as he put his bag in the corner of his room. After begging the Hokage, a new room was built into the tower to separate Anko and Naruto, giving them each a bedroom. Really? Then what's wrong? You're my son. I know when something's bugging you. Anko said. It's just, I want to make a big entrance. Something that'll let them all know that I'm not your average ninja in training, Naruto said. Trust me, kid. I have just the thing for you to do. Anko said. Naruto looked at his mom with question, but listened to what she had to say. As she explained it, the grin on his face grew wider and wider. Soon the day came. A man by the name of Iruka Yumino was walking through the hall to his classroom. He had a small class, probably his smallest class ever, only having about 9 students. He entered the classroom. Noise and laughing and such were blasting through the room. He always hated the first year with a new class. He had to memorize a bunch of new names, figure out what made each of them tick, and how to get each one under his control. He sighed as he walked to the front of the room and slammed his books on the table. The noise was so loud that everyone in the room looked like the crap themselves upon hearing the noise. Now that I have your undivided attention, we may begin. My name is Iruka Yumino. You will address me as Iruka Sensei and not by anything else. I want to make one thing clear to you all. This is not a babysitting service. I have people in this class that want to learn, and as such I will remove you from the class if you appear to be holding the rest back. Iruka said. The class all nodded in agreement. Now that that's all out of the way, let's take roll. Iruka said as he pulled out a sheet of paper from a notebook. Choji Akamichi, Iruka called. Here. A large boy called with his mouth full. Sakura Haruno, Iruka called. Here. Called a pink-haired girl, who was glaring at another girl with blonde hair. Ino Yamanaka, Iruka called. Here. The blonde girl called, returning her glare back to Sakura. Kiba Inuzuka, Iruka called. Here. Called a loud kid. Sasuke Uchiha, Iruka called. The black-haired boy said. Sakura and Ino both drooled over him. Shikamaru Nara, Iruka called. How troublesome, the lazy-eyed boy said. Shino Aburame, Iruka called. A boy with sunglasses simply raised his hand. Hinata Hyuga, Iruka called. Here, Hinata said. She was looking around, wondering where Naruto was. Naruto Mitarashi, Iruka called. Silence. No one was answering. Hinata was beginning to get nervous. Did Naruto change his mind? Did he decide not to join the academy after all? No, that wasn't Naruto's style. She was sure he would come. Iruka looked at the window just in time to see a giant black mass blast through the glass. The students all rose to their feet as somebody just broke through a window. The person stood up, resembling a boy with blonde hair, which hung in a ponytail. He wore a large, black trench coat, a fishnet shirt, black baggy pants, and a pair of black combat boots. Suddenly a large flyer flew out behind him. In huge red letters, it read, Naruto Mitarashi, future genin. Iruka walked up behind Naruto and smiled. Naruto Mitarashi? Iruka asked. That me? Naruto yelled. Good. Iruka said. He then smashed his fist into the back of Naruto's head. Get in a seat and sit down. Iruka yelled. Naruto laughed and shrugged his shoulders. He made his way to the back of the room with a grin. He made sure everyone would know who he was. He was so happy that he failed to notice every giving him glares. Uruka sat mumbling under his breath as he pulled out another sheet, trying to find who was the parent or guardian of his new, favorite, student. He finally matched them up, and almost turned ghost white. Anko. I thought he looked familiar. This is going to be one interesting 7 years, especially with a kid being raised by that psycho. It's bad enough that I have the damn fox demon, but now that woman is raising him too. What did I do to deserve this? Uruka thought. Alright, let's get started, Uruka said. Meanwhile, Anko and Kurenai were sitting at a dango restaurant, enjoying a late breakfast. Anko was telling her exactly how she set up Naruto to greet his new class. The grin never left her face during the whole thing. You really had him do that? Kurenai asked. Of course. He wanted to make a big entrance. All I did was push him in the right direction. Anko said. Uruka will kill you later, the Jonin said. Both girls looked right at each other and nearly fell in the floor laughing. Uruka was smart, but his skills were lacking, one reason that he never made it past the Chunin level. At any rate, there was nothing to do, but kill time until the school day was over. They finished their meal and began to walk from the restaurant. I really wonder how Uruka will take Naruto as a student. Kurenai asked. Who knows? Why don't you ask Naruto when he graduates? Maybe he'll end up on your team. Anko said, throwing a dango stick into the trash. Don't even joke like that. That's all I need is a mini you on my team, Kurenai said. Meanwhile, back at the academy. Now we need to get an idea of your abilities. To begin with, can any of you use a jutsu? Uruka asked. Uruka didn't expect anyone to raise his or her hands. At this age only someone who was a genius would be able to mold chakra. But to his very great surprise not one but 3 hands rose. Very well. Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Naruto, come down here please. Uruka said. The 3 boys were soon standing before him. All right, who would like to go first? Uruka asked. Man, this is a drag, let me go so I can rest again. Shikamaru said. You should be well rested when you come here each day. There is no excuse for not being ready for a full day when you arrive here. In any case, please show me your jutsu. Uruka said. Shikamaru nodded and went through some hand signs. Shadow possession jutsu. Shikamaru said. Shikamaru's shadow flowed 5 feet until it merged with Uruka's. Uruka was compelled to put his hands on his head and begin dancing around, mimicking Shikamaru and greatly amusing everyone in the class. All right, that's enough, Uruka yelled. Shikamaru ended the jutsu. Thank you, Shikamaru, that was very impressive. Uruka said. Shikamaru nodded and slouched back to his seat. Sasuke, why don't you go next? Uruka asked. Can we go outside? It's a fire jutsu, Sasuke said calmly. Uruka nodded. All right class, we're going outside. Uruka said. After about 5 minutes the class and instructors had assembled on the asphalt outside. Sasuke ran through the hand signs. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Sasuke said. From Sasuke's mouth a boulder of fire at least 5 feet across appeared. He let it land on the asphalt. He heard the other kids all shout and applaud, of course. He calmly turned back to his stunned instructors. Both of them were gaping at him. Very impressive, Sasuke. Uruka said. Sasuke headed back to rejoin the other students. All right, Naruto, let's see what you can do. Uruka said. Naruto were soon standing before his classmates. He bit his thumb, made some hand signs and put his hand with his bleeding thumb on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Naruto said. Suddenly a large cloud of smoke puffed through the area, revealing a 21-meter snake. Naruto. How on earth did you do that? Uruka asked in yelling. My mom teaches me, Naruto said while his snake vanishing. Very interesting, Naruto. All right, let's get back to the classroom. Uruka said. At the Hokage Tower, The third Hokage watched through his crystal ball. Anko teaches him the summoning jutsu. The third Hokage said with a smile on his face. What you think? Hear a vote or whatever it called, about Naruto can summon Manda. This is the last vote. After about 2 weeks, no one in the academy knew quite what to think about Naruto. Sasuke thought he is an annoying, talentless, loser. Kiba thought the same. Ino and Sakura both hated him because he didn't worship the ground Sasuke walked on. Shino didn't care much one way or the other, as was the same with Shikamaru and Choji. Iruka thought he was just like Anko, and cried for the future when two of her running around. Of course, Hinata was his best friend, so she had to like him. Naruto didn't really take much at the class or school seriously over the years. Most of the things Iruka taught, Naruto already knew from training with his mom. As a result, Naruto would often let his mind wander or fall asleep in the class, and his basic grades showed this. However, when it came time for tests, Naruto was one of, if not the best, except for when it came to clone jutsu tests. It was then that Naruto decided that clone jutsu was his worst area, and he tried to avoid it whenever possible. Alright class, I have permission slips that all of you will have to bring home and have signed. Iruka said. What are they for, Iruka-sensei? Ino asked. This weekend you will be going on your first field trip. We will be conducting a 2-day survival exercise in the woods outside the village. Iruka said as he gave them all a smile. We're going outside the walls. Naruto said excitedly. Iruka nodded. Sounds troublesome. Shikamaru said as he lifted his head from his desk. Each of you will be placed in a separate section of forest and expected to find water, food, and shelter for 48 hours. None of the regular training grounds are large enough for our needs. None of you need to be concerned. Though we will be outside the village walls, it will be quite safe. Iruka said. With that, the kids are heading home. Naruto returned to the tower. As he went inside, he saw Anko sitting in a simple robe reading on the couch. She smiled at him as he walked inside. How the academy, Squirt? Anko asked. Fine. Naruto said while he showing her the permission slip. Survival exercises. Anko said as she looked at the permission slip. Yes, mommy. Naruto said excitedly. Well then, let's get you ready. Anko said as she taking a pen and signed her name to the paper. The next day, under Iruka's and Mizuki's watch they left Konoha and made their way to a section of forest that had been set aside for the exercises. Each student was taken to a different section of forest and told to remain there until 8 a.m. Monday morning, each student was left alone and was expected to manage on his own. As soon as Iruka dropped him off, he got to work. He set out hacking down tree limbs to build a shelter, looking for a water source, and hunting. In short order, he had a rough but efficient hut set up, a small spring found, and a campfire with a nice fat rabbit cooking over it. Finding the rabbit had been the easiest part. He seemed to have a natural gift for it. He didn't know about the other students, but he was sure to have no trouble managing a couple of days. Having eaten, he took a little time to just enjoy the rather unique experience of being on his own for once. Just then, Naruto heard a scream. He knows that Hinata's voice. He runs to where the scream comes from. When he got to the cliff and saw Hinata hanging on root, the root was going to give way soon. Hinata! Naruto yelled. Naruto! Help! Hinata yelled. The root gave way and Hinata is falling. Naruto jumped after her, got hold of Hinata. Naruto bit his thumb and made some hand signs. What Naruto didn't know that the red chakra is started to wave around his body and the cursed seal is glowing. Summoning jutsu. Naruto yelled. Suddenly a large cloud of smoke puffed through the cliff. A massive tail got out of the smoke and grabbed hold of the rock outside of the cliff. Naruto and Hinata land on its head, though the smoke. The smoke cleans, revealing a giant purple snake with black stripes. Manda. What this? Manda asked as he looks around. Back at the village, the third Hokage, Anko, Hiashi, Kakashi and Kurenai could sense the chakra and know exactly where it comes from. Naruto. Anko yelled as she ran to find him. When she and others got there, they saw a purple tail. They looked down and saw Hinata and Naruto on Manda's head. They okay? Kakashi said. Look like Naruto saved Hinata. Hiashi said. Yes, but Naruto accidentally used the red chakra and somehow used the cursed seal to summon him of all things. Anko said. Back with Naruto and Hinata, they got up. Naruto rubbed his neck where the mark is. Are you okay, Hinata? Naruto asked. Why yes and Naruto. Hinata said. They look around. They notice they on the snake. Wow, I summon a really big snake. Naruto said as he dancing. You little rat. Just who head you think you can dance on? Let me tell you something, I am Manda the King Snake. Now shut up. Manda yelled. What was that all about? He looks cool but scary. Naruto said. Just I was starting to wonder where I am. I find some rats dancing on my head. Orochimaru. Where are you, Orochimaru? Manda asked with some yelling. Back with Anko, the third Hokage, Hiashi, Kakashi and Kurenai, they were hiding behind the trees. Not good. Even Orochimaru can't control Manda, I mean he's scary. Kakashi said. We better get out of here. The third Hokage said. What about Naruto and Hinata? Anko asked. We can't help them here. We'll head back to the village to make some plans. Hiashi said before they walk back to the village. Back with Manda, Naruto and Hinata. Manda is still looking for Orochimaru. He looks at Naruto and Hinata. Hey, rat, Manda asked to Naruto. Why yes? Naruto asked. Where is Orochimaru? Manda asked. Who Orochimaru? Naruto asked. Don't play dumb. I'm talking about white man with snake eyes. Now where is he? Manda asked. He's SS scary. Hinata said in fear. Look, if you tell me where is he, I might make you my henchman. Now answer me. Manda yelled. Okay, if you mean the scary white man with snake eyes, he's not here. Naruto yelled. Not here? Manda asked. Can I ask you? Hinata asked. What? Manda asked. What do you have against with the man? Hinata asked. That the same question I want to ask that snake. I mean, why did he bring me here? He knows I don't like being summoned. Manda said. But. Naruto said. Now, what? Manda asked. Well, I'm the one who summoned you. You see, my friend, Hinata fall from the cliff. I jumped to save her and I thought you will help, so thanks Manda. Naruto said. Manda look at Naruto for the moment then laugh. Yeah right. There no way a little rat like you could have enough power to summon me. Manda said. But I did. Naruto said. Manda kept on laughing. Not get off, you snake. Naruto yelled. Manda stop laughing and look at Naruto. You can make fun of me all you want, but I did summon you. Believe or not, Naruto said. You got some nerve rat, I like it. Which village are you and your friend from? Manda asked. The Hidden Leaf Village. Naruto said. Alright, hang on. Manda said. With that, Manda dig though the side of the cliff. A few moments later, Manda got out in front of the Leaf Village. Anko with the others in the Hokage Tower heard something and look out of the window. Well, look like they got back, thanks to Manda. Anko said. Well rat, I started to believe that you summoned me. Now let get your friend down and start the test. Manda said as he used his tail to pick up Hinata and put her on the ground. Test? What test? Naruto asked. The new summoner will have to stay on my head until the sunset. If you stay on my head until sun goes down, I'll accept you as my partner, but if you don't, it will be 100 human sacrifices. Manda said. Cool. I accept your test. Naruto said. Alright then, let's start. Manda said. With that, Manda started to move faster than ever. Hinata watched them. Anko, Hiashi and Kurenai run to Hinata. Are you okay, Hinata? Hiashi asked. Yes, father. Hinata said. Where's Naruto? Anko asked. He's with that snake. Something about the test. Hinata said. Meanwhile, Manda swim underwater with Naruto on his head. He's good, I give him that. Manda though. Manda went out of the water and kept on moving. A few moments later, Anko, Hinata, Hiashi and Kurenai watched them and saw the sun is about to set. Do you think Naruto will pass? Anko asked. I don't know. He doing okay so far. Hiashi said. Back with Manda and Naruto. Manda look at the setting sun. The sun is about to set, and the rat is still on my head. Alright, one more try. Manda though. Hey rat, what your name? Manda asked. Naruto Mitarashi. Naruto said. Well Naruto Mitarashi, this is the last test. Manda said before he dig underground. Anko, Hinata, Hiashi and Kurenai wonder where Manda and Naruto are. Hiashi activated his Byakugan and look around. They are heading to the village. Hiashi said. When they at the village, Manda got out of the ground and look at the sun. The sun is down. Well done, you pass rat. Manda said. Yeah, I pass. Naruto yelled. Just then, Naruto pass out and fall off of Manda's head. Manda got Naruto with his tail. Well rat, look like you tired out. You should have a good rest. Manda said as he put Naruto on his head. Naruto Mitarashi, what does that last name sound familiar? Manda asked himself. Meanwhile, Anko, Hinata, Hiashi and Kurenai saw it. I don't believe it. Naruto passed Manda's test. Anko said. Maybe we should tell Lord Hokage. Hiashi said. Don't bother Hiashi, I'm already here. A voice said behind them. They turned around and saw the third Hokage with a paper in his hand. Anko, may I borrow your kunai? The third Hokage asked. Anko looked at third Hokage for the moment. Then she took out her kunai from her pocket and gives it to him. The third Hokage tied the paper to the kunai then tossed a kunai at the tree in front of Manda. When it landed, Manda looked at the paper. Adopt form. Anko adopted rat. If I had a guess, I say she the one who teaches him the summoning jutsu. This rat is better than Orochimaru. I think I better to take him to the hospital. Manda though before he dig underground. Hiashi activated his Byakugan and look around. They are heading to the hospital. Hiashi said. Anko, you get there as fast as you can. Kurenai, would you mind get that paper back? The third Hokage asked. Kurenai nodded and went to get it. Hiashi took Hinata home and Anko run to the hospital. When she get there, Naruto is on the ground unconscious in front of the hospital and a giant hole behind him. She picked him up and went in the hospital. Naruto was now 6, and it was his second year at the academy. Every day after class, he and Hinata would meet up with Lee and Tenten over at Training Ground 13, where they would just waste time talking, maybe doing some light training, things like that. Afterwards, Naruto would head home for his next lesson with Anko. She had finally decided that he was ready to learn special jutsu, and as a result, the training that night took them into the middle of the forest. What are we doing here, mommy? Naruto asked. I think you're about ready to start learning some of those snake jutsus and stuff I showed you when you were little. There's only one thing we need to work on before that. Anko said. Naruto paid close attention to Anko. We're going to work on chakra control. You spend way too much doing the basic jutsus still, and if you want to learn any of these, then you need to be able to cut back drastically. Anko said. How do we do that? Naruto asked. Climb the tree without using your hands. Anko said. Climb trees without using hands? Naruto asked. Let me show you what I mean. Anko said. Anko took a deep breath. Naruto watched as chakra began to flow around her feet, and then suddenly ran up the tree all the way to the top. Naruto's eyes widened as she stopped at a branch, walked out to it, and then flipped over the side, looking at him upside down. See, all you need to do is focus chakra in your feet and run towards the tree, but it's got to be the right amount, or else. Anko said with a wink. I try. Naruto said. He ran straight to the tree and took one step on it before flipping upside down and falling to the ground. Anko nearly fell off the tree while laughing at this. She jumped to the ground and walked over to the boy with a huge grin. Not enough chakra, Anko said. Naruto picked himself off the ground and ran back to his starting place. Taking a deep breath, he ran back towards the tree. This time he made it up the tree about 2 feet, before his foot pushed into the tree, causing him to fall back to the ground. Anko sighed and bent down to where he landed on the ground. You used too much. At any rate, I can only give you the advice to readjust your chakra output and try it again. Anko said. Anko reached into her pocket and tossed a kunai at him that just missed hitting him. I'm going to go grab some dango and then call it a night. Meanwhile, you keep at it and use that kunai to mark how far you get. Oh, and you have to use your feet only for climbing. Don't worry about the villagers attack you while you're alone because my friend there is going to watch you. Anko said as she pointed a snake sitting on a tree stump. Later squirt. Anko said before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Naruto picked up the kunai to continue his lesson, now under the watchful eye of one of Anko's snakes. He kept trying and falling. It kept on like this for the rest of the night. Anko checked back in at one point to see that Naruto had made it about 20 feet up the tree. Anko suggested him resting for the night, but Naruto refused, saying he would have this mastered by the morning. Anko shrugged and walked into the tower, leaving Naruto on his own. Anko walked out the next morning discovering that Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly a kunai flew right by her face, gracing the side of her cheek. She looked up and saw Naruto smiling standing upside down on the branch she stood the previous night. Well done, Squirt. Now get down here and I'll teach you one of my jutsus. Anko yelled. Naruto hopped down and ran to Anko. She showed him the hand symbols, and then shot her arms out, shooting out 5 snakes from her sleeves. Naruto repeated what she did and shot his arms out. He managed to send 2 snakes out, which was enough to make him happy. He realized that he was going to be late and ran towards the academy. Anko sighed as she looked up at the tree, and then headed to town for some breakfast. She would later hear talk about how 2 snakes crawled into Ino's dress in class that day. When academy ends, the kids are waiting for their parents to pick them up. Naruto is waiting for his mommy. When will mommy pick me up? Naruto asked himself. Your mommy is on the mission. A voice said behind him. Naruto turned around and saw Kurenai. Auntie Kurenai, Naruto yelled. Naruto run to Kurenai and hug her. Kurenai was shocked that Naruto call her auntie. How long is my mommy will be? Naruto asked. She be back in a week. In the meantime you will sleep at my place. Kurenai said. With that, they went to Kurenai's place. On the way, they passed the statue of Jiraiya and Tsunade with a broken statue of Orochimaru. Anime and manga. Auntie Kurenai, who are these statue guys? Naruto asked. Well, they are the Sannin, that mean the legendary 3 ninja. There's the Toad Sannin, Slug Sannin and Snake Sannin. Kurenai said. Cool. That's what I'm going to be. Naruto yelled in excitement. Huh? Kurenai asked. I'm going to become the new Snake Sannin, then everyone will have to stop disrespecting me. Naruto said. The new snake Sanin. What will Anko think of this? Kurenai though. Well, being the Sanin is not easy. Kurenai said. So, I going to be a new snake Sanin. Naruto said. Well, let just head to my places. Kurenai said. With that, they went to Kurenai's place. Naruto looked back at the statues and the thoughts of him being a Sanin raced through his mind. He was saving the village, being cheered, and befriended by everyone in the village. He runs to catch up with Kurenai. What you think? Hear a vote or whatever it called, about Naruto become the new snake Sanin. It was Naruto's third and the last year at the academy. A couple Chunin chases Naruto. You can't catch me, Naruto yelled while jumping from roof to roof. Inside the Hokage tower, the third Hokage is painting but stops as hears approaching footsteps. Lord Hokage. Two voices yelled behind him. The third Hokage looked annoyed at the disruption while he was painting. What now? And don't tell me it's Naruto. The third Hokage said. Both of the men who entered the room looked nervous. But it is Naruto. One of man said. The Hokage rolled his eyes. What did he do this time? The third Hokage asked. He defaced the statue of the legendary three ninja. Another man said. Losers. Figures you'd fall for that. Naruto said. Oh yeah, Naruto. A voice yelled behind him. Naruto is so startled he falls down. He turns around and saw Kurenai. Auntie Kurenai, what are you doing here? Naruto asked as he is rubbing his butt. No, what are you doing here? You should be in class. Kurenai said. Back in the classroom, most of the kids are snickering as Naruto is brought in all tied up. Kurenai walk off. Anime and manga. Alright Naruto, since you decided to skip the lesson we will review the transformation jutsu. Iruka said. Collective. Oh, rang out from the other students. Sakura here. Transform. Sakura said before transforms into Iruka. As Iruka checks her off his list. Sasuke Uchiha is next as Sakura attempts to get his attention with her ability to transform. He ignores her and transforms himself into Iruka. Don't screw this up Naruto. Shikamaru said. We always pay for your screw-ups. Ino said. Like I care. Naruto said. Down the line of children Hinata was watching Naruto. Naruto, do you best. Hinata though as she was pushing her fingertips together. Transform. Naruto said before he transforms into Anko. Tomorrow will be your finals. So practice hard. Iruka happily said as the students left for the day. Anime and manga. Naruto was washing the paint off the statue of the legendary three ninja with Kurenai watching him. You are not going home until you wash the paint off. Kurenai said. Naruto kelp on washing. Hey Naruto, after that, I take you with your mommy to the ramen stand. Kurenai said. Alright, I have these statues clean in no time. Naruto yelled. A few moments later, Naruto, Anko and Kurenai are at the ramen stand. Naruto was eating miso ramen. Naruto, why would you do that to the legendary three ninja statues? I mean you know what they are don't you? Kurenai asked. Yeah, everyone knows. The Sannin are widely regarded for their great skill and power, each on the level of a Kage in their own right. Their name is known in countries all across the world. Naruto said. Then, why did you? Kurenai asked. Because I going to be a new Sannin. Naruto Mitrashi. The new snake Sannin. Then everyone will have to stop disrespecting me. I kind of want to ask you Auntie Kurenai. Naruto said. You want another bowl? Kurenai asked. No, I want to try on your headband, please. Naruto asked. Oh this? Kurenai asked as she points her headband. No way. You can only wear the leave headband when you graduation at the academy and become a ninja. Kurenai said. You are so mean. Naruto said as he pouted. Anko looked at Naruto for the moment. Squirt. I have a mission tomorrow, so I can't see you until tonight. Anko said. Naruto was sad, but he knows that Anko is a ninja and a jonin. They pay for the ramen and went home. Okay, today the final will be on the clone jutsu. Iruka said. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. A universal round of, came from the class. Oh no, that my worst jutsu. Great. I never go to pass. Naruto though. Naruto is called into the next room to take his test. He begins to build up chakra, and attempts to create a clone. Clone jutsu. Naruto said. A pathetic, almost comical version of Naruto was laying face down next to him. You fail, yelled Iruka. Naruto looked very sad and downtrodden. Come now, Iruka. He did manage to make at least one. Can't you let him pass with that? Mizuki asked. I understand Mizuki-sensei, but we cannot pass him. All the other students made at least 3 replications. He was only able to make one. And look at it. It's pathetic. I am sorry, but we cannot pass him. Iruka said. Naruto wasted no time. He didn't want to hear the jeers coming from all the class. He didn't want to hear Iruka telling them to be back at the class at 10 tomorrow to meet their jonin instructors. He didn't even want to wait for Hinata. Naruto ran straight out of the school, straight to the swing in the back of the academy schoolyard. He watched as all the parents celebrated with their children about passing. Anko was on a mission today, so she wouldn't be back until late tonight. Naruto sighed as he was about to head home, when he saw Mizuki in front of him. Naruto, what if I knew of a way that you could pass the genin exam for sure next time? Not only that, but it has techniques that would make anyone respect you. Mizuki said. What is it? Naruto asked. Mizuki smiled. He bent down and whispered. Naruto started grinning. He couldn't believe that something like that was in the village. He nodded, and agreed to meet Mizuki in the woods near the tower at 10 p.m. Mizuki walked away from the excited Naruto, face beaming with pride. Night fell in the village. Anko had finally returned from her mission and entered the tower, only to find it quiet. Squirt. Guess he not here. Anko said. A smile crept around her lips. She took off out the door to go find him. After all, today was the day he graduated from the academy, and she wanted to hear all about it. She landed right in front of the Hokage Tower, just in time to see several ninja run out. She made her way to the old man's room, to see what was going on. Lord Hokage, what's with all the Anbu? Anko asked. The third simply raised his eyes at her. It's Naruto, the third Hokage said. In the woods in a training ground near a shack, Naruto has a scroll and is opening it. Now let's see. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Ah, man. I would have to be a clone jutsu. My worst jutsu, Naruto said. A few moments later, Naruto leaned up against one of the trees in the clearing, breathing deeply as he tried to regain his breath and stamina. He'd been training for hours, and now he was completely exhausted from the exertion he had put on himself. Suddenly, though, Naruto heard something beside him. Thinking it was Mizuki, Naruto stood up, and was prepared to tell Mizuki he had done it, to see, Iruka. Just kidding. Anko standing in front of Naruto. You in big trouble, Squirt. Anko said, really mad. Naruto froze for a second, before scratching the back of his head and laughing sheepishly. Hi mommy. Back from your mission? Naruto asked. He's been practicing. Anko though. Mommy, I'm going to show a jutsu from the scroll and pass. If someone learns a jutsu from this scroll, they automatically pass, right? Naruto asked. What do you mean? Anko asked. Mizuki-sensei told me about this. He told me where to find this scroll in this place. Naruto said. Anko feels strong killing intent and suddenly pushes Naruto to the side. Look out! Anko yelled. Anko is hit by a dozen kunai. Naruto looks on as his mother is now bleeding from several wounds, the smell of blood and killing intent is thick in the air. I should have known, Mizuki. Anko said in angry. Naruto, give me the scroll. Mizuki said. Don't do it, Naruto. Mizuki's only going to take the scroll and betray the village. Anko said. Anime and manga. Come now, don't you want to pass? Mizuki asked. Naruto, he's lying to you, don't believe him. Anko yelled. Mizuki laughed. I'll tell you about lying. Mizuki said. No. Anko yelled. They have been lying to you all your life, Naruto. Mizuki said. What do you mean? Naruto asked. Don't tell him. It's forbidden. Anko yelled. 12 years ago the nine-tailed fox was sealed inside you, Naruto. You are the nine-tailed fox. You are the demon. Now die. Mizuki yelled as he pulls a large shuriken off his back and throws it at Naruto. Anko reacted the only way she could. A scream echoed out into the area. Naruto looked up to see Anko over top of him, a large shuriken sticking out of her back. You alright, Squirt? Anko managed to ask. Before she could even get an answer, Mizuki kicked her to the ground. Maybe. I'll finish you first, Mizuki said. Naruto's eyes widened as he watched Mizuki pick Anko up by her hair, and hold a kunai to her throat. He felt anger. Naruto rose to his feet, growling. Get away from my mommy. Naruto yelled. Mizuki's eyes widened. Naruto's eyes were now red with black slits. Mizuki smiled. What are you going to do, demon? Mizuki asked. Naruto said nothing. He performed several hand signs. The red chakra is started to wave around his body and the cursed seal is glowing, and suddenly, 100 Naruto appeared behind him. All 100 ran forward, and before Mizuki could even scream, he began to literally be ripped apart. Anko quickly rose to her feet and grabbed the real Naruto, before he could go any further. Iruka and some Anbu arrived at the scene. Mizuki lay clinging to life. Anko, though wounded, held the angered Naruto, stroking his hair while hugging him, slowly calming him down. What happened? Iruka asked. Mizuki tricked him. Mizuki is the traitor, caught by Naruto, who saved my life as well, using the shadow clone jutsu. Anko said. Iruka nodded and he bent down to Naruto's eye level. I apologize for everything. You arose with the true essence of a ninja, ready to put your life on the line to protect those who mean the most to you. Iruka said. Anime and manga. Iruka-sensei. Naruto asked. I want you to have this. Iruka said as he reached in his pocket and pulled out a small headband. The headband? Naruto asked. Yes, Naruto. You showed that you are ready to be a ninja after all. I apologize for everything, Naruto. Be at the school tomorrow at 9 a.m., to officially begin your career as a genin. Iruka said. Naruto tied his headband around his head, and despite his cool act he was trying to put on, he began to dance happily. I'm a ninja, Naruto yelled to his mother. Anko smiled at the boy's happiness, but at the same time, a thought ran through her mind. Does he not even remember what happened? Anko thought. Anko and Naruto returned home for the evening, but not before running into Lee, Hinata, and Tenten to enjoy some ramen as a celebration. Meanwhile, the three Jonin chosen to lead the new graduates arrived at the Hokage Tower. Glad that you all made it on time. Kakashi, Kurenai, and Asuma, please be seated. The third Hokage said. All three sat in the chairs in the office. I trust you have all three gone over the information in the folders on the 8 graduates. The third Hokage asked. Yes, Lord Hokage. However, it will be difficult to lead a team of only 2 genin. Kurenai said with a sad look about Naruto did not pass. Suddenly, Iruka ran into the room. The sudden arrival of him surprised the others, but he apologized and walked to the third Hokage. Iruka, what are you doing here? The third Hokage asked. I apologize for coming during this meeting, but I have to deliver this to Kakashi and the others. Uruka said. He handed them all a piece of paper, as well as one to the third Hokage. This Naruto Mitarashi, I was informed that he did not pass the Genin exam. Asuma said. Naruto passed. He took his test late, during the Mizuki and Forbidden Scroll incident. Not only was able to save the scroll and Anko, but he mastered the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Uruka said. That is a Jonin-level technique, Kakashi said. Indeed, but I witnessed the whole event. The third Hokage said, pointing to his crystal ball. Kurenai was happy that Naruto pass. I approve of Naruto's graduation. If any have any reason as to why he should not graduate, then feel free to talk to me after this meeting. Uruka, you may leave. The third Hokage said. Uruka bowed and left the room. Now then, let us begin. Kakashi, since you have held the Jonin level the longest, you may make the first pick of who you want on your team. The third Hokage said. I'll have Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno and Kiba Inuzuka. Kakashi said. Anime and manga. Very well. Asuma. The third Hokage said. I'll have Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi and Ino Yamanaka. Asuma said. Which leaves Kurenai to take Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame and Naruto Mitarashi. Now, I will go over some minor things, just in case anyone has forgotten. In order for the Genin to be officially taught by you, a test must be passed showing that the team you have chosen is capable of working together. If one of them should fail, the whole team must be returned to the academy, until a new Genin is capable of taking the member's place. After you finish your test, and if they should pass, return the day after the test to begin running your D-rank missions. Now, you are all dismissed. However, Kurenai, please remain here for a moment. The third Hokage said. Kakashi and Asuma bowed and left the room. What is it, Lord Hokage? Kurenai asked. I'm sure you know, Naruto is the container for Nine-Tailed Fox, the third Hokage said. Kurenai nodded. Now, as you know, this information must remain a secret. It could be a disaster should his team find out at the start. While I doubt Hinata would care, we can't predict how Shino, much less the rest of the Genin would react. The third Hokage said. I understand, Lord Hokage. It shall remain a secret. Kurenai said. Good, now go. The third Hokage said. Kurenai bowed and left the room. What you think? Hear a vote or whatever it called, about Naruto want revenge against Orochimaru.